By Babel streams we sat and wept, while Zion we thought on. Amidst thereof we hung our harps, the willow trees upon. With all the power and skill I have, I'll gently touch each string, if I can reach the charming sound. I'll tune my harp again. Thank you. Thank you. Is the dulcimer loud enough? You sure? I want it to fill the room. But I don't want to be too loud either. So, for those who may not know, I'm Timothy Seamen. I'm here from Virginia via Colorado and Missouri and all. This is the biggest trip I've taken in a long, long time, and mixing it around with all sorts of things. The two pieces I opened with are called Babel's Streams and Samarantha. And I found Babel's Streams in an old shape note book. It's a droney shape note book thing with anonymous everything. And it's only one verse, and it's based on the verse from the Psalms, I believe. By the waters of Babylon we lay down and wept. We hung our harps on the willow trees. And I put it together with another one that I learned from a John McCutcheon album, but also found it in the old shape notebooks called Samarantha. And the words to that go, his voice as the sound of the dulcimer sweet is heard through the shadows of death. The air... I'm missing it. Oh no. The cedars of Lebanon bow at his feet. The air is perfumed with his breath. And I try to capture that, and I put the two together because they're both about trees, and therefore I could have them in my Sycamore Rapids album, which is an album about recreation among certain species of trees in the parks of Virginia. Sycamore Rapids. And so I love to play that. And by the way, I also played Babel Streams on the Bode Psaltery on another album, Cleansing Fountain, which is for the Blue Ridge Parkway. So most of what I do is about something. So this is sort of a program, not just playing a bunch of music, because everything you'll see is about something. And before I forget, I want to make sure that you get a chance to come to Virginia with me tonight and go on a canoe ride. So, dehydration. When you get as old as I am, you need to drink more fluid. So, just warning you for when you get as old as I am. Anyway, this piece is an original composition called Sycamore Rapids, title piece from that same album. And I thought, why don't I go ahead and share it with you all now? But you need to participate with me in your imagination. It's very important. When my brother and I was just at Shenandoah National Park 3 weeks ago performing this, where you could see down to the place in the river where this takes place, which is kind of cool. It's Page Valley, Virginia, and Bentonville and Front Royal. And when we were teenagers, my brother, we had a Grumman aluminum canoe, and our parents were really good parents. They would take us down, they would take us in the car all the way out to Bentonville with the canoe, and we would put in early in the morning and go down the river, and they would pick us up at Front Royal, and we'd have a picnic and go home. And they'd do that even if there was flood stage in the river, which is a little bit dangerous, but we did it anyway. So there are these rocks across the river that create sort of dam-like splashing at times. You got to watch for those. But then there's regular rapids too. So what we're going to do is we're going to put in early in the morning at Bentonville. We're going to start going down the river through the rapids, the Whitewater, and you'll sense that in the music, hopefully. And then we're going to stop after a while and fish, signified by Schubert's song, The Trout, which is about fishing. And then we'll get back into the rapids for the rest of the thing. So before I begin this piece, I want every one of you to check to see that your personal flotation device is properly fitted, that you have an extra paddle, you got all your fishing gear and water and food. Are we ready? All right, Sycamore Rapids. Thank you. Thank you. Anybody get wet? You're okay? Okay. How big was the fish? Not like that. I mean, these rainbow trout, these brook trout, they can get huge, you know. Just joking. But anyway, so I hope that gave that effect. The recreation in the outdoors is sort of one of those themes. There are a lot of things that interweave. I want to go ahead. I usually share this late in a concert, if at all, but I want to go ahead to a more peaceful piece, just to not be doing this craziness. And it's a special experience I had. I taught backpacking in the Rockies all summer long, 1970 through 73, when I was a student at William & Mary. And I went, there's a Philmont Scout Ranch in New Mexico, and I went to as a camper the year before when I was 17 years old, and with a group of guys from Virginia. And we had a ranger that took us out, did training, and left us, and we went on for 14 days, somewhere thereabouts, through the Rocky Mountain Wilderness. And we started on July 11th. We arrived at July 11th, and on July 12th, we headed out on the trail. You're smiling. Do you know what I'm referring to? You don't? Okay. and we headed out on the trail, and we were carrying big packs, you know, and it was raining pretty often, but it cleared up after a while. And we went from Lover's Leap Camp to Brayu, I think, to Fish Camp, up to Lower Bonito, and gradually worked our way up to this beautiful high mountain meadow called Beaubien Camp. And some of these camps were staffed and some were unstaffed. The staffed ones had a program, you know, like Dutch oven cooking or rock climbing or something like that. And we're at Beaubien and really tired, and we cooked our supper on the open fire with the sun going down and the aspen trees and the fir trees and the spruce trees and the mountains rising above, this incredible, way out in the middle of the Rocky Mountain Wilderness. Wonderful. And we were sitting there after cleaning up, gazing into the embers as we saw the full moon rising and the sun setting across from it. And the camp director showed up in our campsite and said, "I just heard something on the Motorola I really need to tell you about. Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin are walking on that moon right now." It was July 20th, 1969. And so this piece is called "To Gaze Into the Embers" in memory of that amazing experience. And then I think I'm going to do Shenandoah following that. I like the New Bedleys. Shenandoah. Okay, I'll go ahead and introduce that too. You know, I always play at a Shenandoah National Park, and you know, you wonder, Missouri River? What's the deal? Shenandoah and Missouri River? And I found the first map made of Virginia in the 1700s showed the Missouri River in Virginia, in the state of Virginia, because they're trying to claim as much land as they could. That was kind of fascinating. It's kind of whatever. But then someone told me that he grew up in the Midwest, and he was told that song was a riverboatman's song on the Missouri River, of these guys poling and doing all the barge things and everything. It was like a sea shanty, which it is, and he was from Shenandoah Valley, and he missed the East, and I long to see you again, that type of thing. And so you got both of them that way. There, got to introduce everything. I was an English teacher, so To Gaze Into the Embers and Shenandoah. Thank you. There are hundreds of thousands of notes there. And my body's supposed to get them all, and we're working on that. It's a What's that?
Sounds like 3 people.
Yeah, that was the biggest compliment I ever got was when I was in 2004. I played a short set in the instructors concert at Augusta Festival in Elkins, West Virginia. And somebody came up to me afterwards and they said, it took me 3 songs to realize you weren't playing along with the soundtrack. I go, hey, now that is a compliment. That is a But there are tricks to it, and I shared those tricks with some people earlier. Those who came to the separated hand thing, you could see the little triangular shapes I do a lot of the time. I'm applying those in all these different ways as I develop things. So there are tricks. I did an album for Shenandoah National Park in 1997 called Here on This Ridge, and they are still selling the CD in their shops. That's one of and Colonial Williamsburg is, and Jamestown, and there are very few CDs in shops anywhere in the world, so I am amazed that they're buying wholesale from me. I'm one of the only CD wholesale distributors left in the world. For what it's worth, but I'm glad they still have it in their shops. And I made a number of pieces. I did a version of Shenandoah with improv like that, but with a bunch of different instruments. It was ensemble, but similar approach. And I also wanted to really present the program of the park, which is the Blue Ridge, the people living there, the nature of the Blue Ridge and so forth. And at the time that I was working on it in 1995, 96, 97, I found that they were reestablishing the peregrine falcon on the Blue Ridge. And you'd go up on the high mountains and there would be police tape, do not enter, because they were protecting the nesting sites. And then one time I went up on Stony Man Mountain and sat up on top, and I saw a peregrine falcon leap off a ledge and catch the updraft out of Page Valley like a hang glider and scream in what sure seemed like delight. It's like, just floating out over there. And I thought, I want to depict that, and I'll use a bamboo flute with a pentatonic improvisation, for those who recognize that term. And I use this bamboo flute made in Virginia. I don't want to talk too much, but the guy who makes them used to go into Florida yards to get people's bamboo, and he would clear it out, and then he would bring it back and make these wonderful flutes. His name is Rob Yard. Destiny. And I asked him, I said, did you make that name up? And he said, no, I'm from the Yard family of master gardeners at Butchart Gardens in British Columbia. Whoa. Anyway, okay, all that. Okay, the first piece is called Falcons Among Crags. The second piece I'm going to follow, they're both very brief, is a pentatonic improvisational piece called My Thoughts Linger There. I live in these wonderful estuaries of southeastern Virginia, have gone kayaking with the Carsages and all that when they lived down there, and yet I was born in West Virginia and the mountains are in my blood, and I wish I were up there all the time, and so I'm always trying to get up to the mountains too. I like the north, but I'm going to try to get up to the high peaks this week. That's where so the second piece is called My Thoughts Linger There. Thank you. You know I used an effect on that flute. There have been people that sometimes come up and say, what kind of flute is that makes that amazing sound? No, it's not just the flute. Anyway, it's called a regenerating ping pong delay at a half second. Anyway. I have a great deal of material I want to share, and it's way more than we have time for, so I'm kind of considering what to triage, you know. You know, it's a French word for testing things, test which ones, you know. I think I'm going to share since we're still at Shenandoah National Park, I guess, sort of, I'm going to share one called Big Meadows Twilight. And someone here actually knows one of my students who recorded it on an album. It's Big Meadows Twilight, yeah. And this is the first piece I composed on this dulcimer with my new recording technique. And I actually wrote the piece to teach myself a technique I had in mind, and I felt it coming into place as I played it. But how many people have been to Big Meadows in Shenandoah National Park? Oh my, what? I see 3 hands. Okay. It's a high, if you don't know that it's at 3,600 feet above sea level, it might just look like a meadow, you know, but it's actually a mountaintop meadow that for many centuries was controlled burned by the, whatever you call them, Native Americans. I'm a Native American, so I don't like that term. I was born in America. Native means we were born there, you know. So I would call it First Peoples, First Nations people, you know, that type, or indigenous, original. They burned it off and hunted deer up there, high on the mountain for centuries, and the Park Service still does that. They still burn it off every year, every couple of years, which is kind of neat. And it's this wonderful, idyllic place with little trees here and there, deer standing around, tall grass, and little marsh areas. And really high on the mountains, high for Virginia. And so I'm going to play Big Meadows Twilight, and I think I want to follow that with a newer piece of mine I haven't yet recorded called Treasured Hope. And it's meant to express the feeling of hope. And when I was composing it, I thought, what in the world can I do to introduce it and maybe do an interlude or whatever to really make it come together as a composition and not just be a tune? And after a couple years of frustration, it works with hope, doesn't it? And I ended up with depression. I take the tune and make it depressing. So we start with depression in a minor key and then do the hope and then fall into another bout and then get back to the hope. So maybe you'll be able to hear that in it. Thank you. Thank you. I am not a perfectionist, but certain notes really ought to be there. You know, sometimes like, oh, my hands, come on. Yeah. So a little more fluid. Let me go ahead and mention, you all probably know the difference. I don't know who everybody is here. You know the difference between a hammered dulcimer and a mountain dulcimer, right? If you play a hammered dulcimer, you have to deal with people coming up and saying, what is that instrument, you know? And you try to explain to them, and as soon as they hear the word dulcimer, they think, oh, of course, a dulcimer, yeah. My uncle made one of those from a kit, and he has it hanging in his living room. And they're looking at this thing, you say, he has one of those things hanging in your living room? Yeah, he has one of those, and they say, oh, no, the wavy one. And that's not the same instrument. They're different, you know. But a lot of us who play one play the other. And when I decided to play mountain dulcimer, I decided I'm not going to become a virtuoso with fingerstyle and chording and all these types of things. I'm going to stay pretty much with my Scots-Irish roots of droning, you know. And so I mostly drone. And I have a few, one thing, you know, I do a few tunings. If you play mountain dulcimer, one of the things that's handy, and of course this is what I said to the people in Independence, Missouri. I said, you know, if you want to learn a new tuning and you really don't want to have to keep retuning your instrument all the time, this is a need, you have a need to buy another dulcimer, you know. So I have two of them here. They're both tuned about the same. I'm thinking, what would be, there are many options. I think I'm going to lower this. I'm going to lower it from DAD to DGD. Traveling, I can't have all my here. That puts it in the key of G instead of the key of D, and you can still play on the melody strings and on the bass strings with the melody, and so it varies back and forth. I'm going to do some 3 Appalachian folk hymns that are still in the modern hymnals in many churches, and a lot of people don't know they're Appalachian folk hymns. But they're the old shape note folk songs that are from the British Isles, and I'm going to play 2 different ones, Nettleton and Beach Spring, B-E-A-C-H. You can picture a stream with a little spring coming out on a beach beside the overhanging sod from the mountains or whatever. Both of which are used with the words, "Come thou fount of every blessing." And I just recently made 3 versions of those on YouTube. If you're interested, go to my YouTube channel, where I recorded just 2 dulcimers, this one and this one, playing it as a duet sort of. And then I did one with gathering other instruments joining in until there were 8 of them. And then and with video of all of those, so it's a bunch of me playing all these different instruments. And then I did a slideshow of one of my favorite fountains that I've visited, which is Lake Creek along the Beartooth Highway in Wyoming. And so there are fountain pictures, slideshow with the same music. Encouraging people, be creative, try to find new ways to do everything under the sun. So here it is, and I'll do a third one also, Brethren We Have Met to Worship, which is the tune named Holy Manna, which is also, it fits on a DGD really well with the notes that go below. So here we go. Let's see what happens. Have I made enough noise yet? Let's see. I'm going to play a little bit more on the Hammered Dulcimer, and then we'll take a break for a little bit. We're going to do that, right? Have a little bit of an intermission, and then I'm going to ask you to join with me on a couple things with percussion in the last half, just to let you know it's coming. But I'm going to do Pachelbel's Canon Fantasia, which, you know, and we talked earlier today when we were talking about the chords. This piece, you can't do a canon on a solo hammered dulcimer. It can't be done. It's got to have all these moving parts. So I make it a fantasia on it. And then I'm going to follow that with two pieces. I'll do a brief verse of a tune that I was there to hear composed by my roommate back in 1978, Henry Smith. We were rooming together before our respective weddings. And he picked up his guitar and was playing the chords from Pachelbel's Canon, which had newly become popular at that time. And he started singing this song, Give Thanks with a Grateful Heart. Have you ever, anybody know Give Thanks with a Grateful Heart? My roommate wrote that in my presence. And it's spread to the entire world, you know, since then, sung in every language group and everything. And then I'm going to follow with The Broom of the Cowdenaws. Oh, the broom, the bonny, bonny broom, Scottish tune. And it's a homesick tune about a shepherdess who's away from home and really wishes she could be back in the fields of Scotch broom taking care of her grandfather's sheep, you know. And so I try to give it a homesick feeling. And it gives me it reminds me of C.S. Lewis, who was also a Scots-Irish guy and lived in Belfast, you know, and he talked in much of his work, he talked about an inconsolable longing in the human soul built in that is like a marker for that we need this joy with a capital J, he called it. He put capitals, you know, and he said he felt like it was a marker that heaven is our home, you know. And so I try to capture that in Broom of the Cowdenaws. I talk too much, but here we go. Here comes the music. Thank you. Thank you. Did you want to say something?
We just wanted to invite everyone, we have refreshments in the other room, the door to the right, and Tim has CDs for sale.
And it's pretty much self-serve. Cash, check, it's the stuff out there in case you hadn't seen it. Cash, check, Venmo, or PayPal. So, anyway. Out of what?
Wow.
Well, I'm glad it come through well. These are world-class microphones I'm using. They're the type of microphones that are used in big studios for the finest sound. These are cheapo speakers, but with those really good microphones going in stereo into them, they really do a great sound.
Do you want me to fill your water bottle?
I've still got that. I brought them out. I just need to make sure I drink it. Thank you.
They're all beautiful. Good. And
Sure, why not one more?
they go like this. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I see that, but they're like that. So when you play, I'm perplexed.
Did they ask the question about the low strings?
Yeah, that they're.
Yeah, everybody comes up and they say, how do you play the low strings? You know, we play them where they're high.
Okay.
They come up to where you can hit them. Yeah.
Amazing. That takes a lot of energy.
And
And to talk and to sing and to play.
my neuromuscular system isn't fully doing the job tonight, and I've been missing some notes just because I'm tired, you know.
Yeah, I can imagine. Talk about being old, but you don't know what that is.
I know, I was joking when I said when you all get to my age, you know. I'm 73.
I can hardly remember.
Yeah, I'm 73. People should have been able to figure that out because I was 17 in 1969.
And your stories are interesting. Stories
Well,
are
thank
good.
you.
Making music while reading my
Well, good, yeah. What? You gonna touch it?
I don't think I should.
Oh, you can. It's okay.
I'm Rich Kennedy. I'm a friend of Art Meister's. I got in college. I went to Wheaton College, and someone introduced me to Malcolm Alfred, Ray Larson.
When were you at Wheaton?
73 to 77.
Oh, okay. Yeah, my brother has been a professor there since 90 for about 92.
Same name, last name.
Mhm.
No,
Professor of teaching English as a second language.
Oh, okay. way back, but the Wind Shakes Barley was one of the ones that but
Yeah,
but
let's
then
see,
he went to the-
Samarantha, that I played at the beginning, I learned from his album Fine Times at Our House, I think it was.
He went through this phase with a lot of children's music, and
Yeah.
it was fun because as we had children, the story I make up, I don't know if it's true or not, but he said, "Oh, I don't like the children's music, so I got children said, no, I'll make it myself," and I don't know if it's true, but it was beautiful. The kids
Some
loved
of the
it.
stuff on his kids' albums was truly beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But
and some
it's-
really fun stuff. I've worked with kids a lot. I do songs like "How'd You Do." You know, do you know that one? It's
Yeah.
And I teach that as a greeting song for my classes, and then sing it. You know.
But it was kind of fun because it's not common to have songs that kids really love that adults also love. So there's
Yeah.
Mail Myself to You, Family Garden.
Mail Myself to You, yeah, Family Garden, and All God's Critters got a
Place in the Choir.
place in the choir. That's the one I was trying to remember.
I saw him once here. He came to Rochester and did more guitar than Dulcimer.
It was 40 years ago now that he started moving away from the Dulcimer.
Oh, okay.
40 years. He's my age.
Okay. Yeah, and
So I needed to step in his place, you know, because a lot of my technique is more similar to his than a lot of people's. Sort of the dramatic, splashy, jazzy, you know, whatever type stuff.
that the song that they just every Christmas we play is the Christmas in the Trenches.
Yeah.
It's a Dulcimer song.
Which is where he really started becoming a guitarist, was with that song.
I guess it's a true story. He told the story of playing it in, I don't know, Europe somewhere, I think Germany, and there were some people that kind of came in late at the back and hovered and kind of came up and said, "You were there, you know, for that experience."
Wow.
Yeah, that gets me every time, that song.
Mm.
Well, I was going to come, but I just said, I have to come at least for the first half, so I won't be here.
Oh, the first half is nothing compared to the second half.
Oh, you're gonna rope me into it. I know the Carsages as well.
Do you?
I kind of got them around. We do a nursing home and nursery together. So,
Oh, great. Yeah.
but they're great folk.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we were in a small group together in our church,
Okay.
and I played on the music team with Jessica for
Okay, cool.
several years too. Yeah.
Well, I'm the music director of the nursing home once a month. I'm joking. I played all three chords of the guitar.
Oh, all three.
All three chords.
Yeah.
Well, good to meet you.
Yeah, good to meet you.
I just want to say thank you. Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
It's really
I'm gonna run this.
my apologies. During the workshop.
I totally missed that. So.
I was handed this and told that you might need it.
Somebody saw me smearing food on my beard. Who handed that to me?
Kathy.
I did smear some food on my beard. Trying to eat a sandwich.
It's hard. It's hard.
So I was at Philmont in 1971.
Ah, I was a ranger in 1971.
Yeah, and we had for our orientation we had a woman.
That was the first year.
Yeah. I don't remember her name, but
It might have been Kathy Leach. Tall lady.
No, we called her Miss Sherman Hack.
Might have been Nancy Wells.
Yeah, I don't remember.
Very, very energetic,
But very energetic.
fun-loving type.
Yeah. She was saying, "Oh, don't worry about the bears. I have more trouble with the guys from the Air Force Academy."
Yeah, I remember the Air Force Academy guys. They were tremendous. help keep us in line, not be too weird.
Anyway, I thought that was good. Interesting to hear that you were there.
Yeah, boy, it's once you've. I was there 5 summers, you know, and once you do that, you never get away from it. It's part of it, you know.
Sounds good.
Better. Thank you. Thank you. I could lecture about all of these, like about how African American spirituals, and by the way, Wayfaring Stranger is both a white and a black spiritual. It's in all the old materials from the way back. And nobody knows really where it came from, but there's sharing among believers, among the races. And that's a good example of that, which I thought was cool. There's the black bird. Amazing Grace has that too, And Wade in the Water. Why not lecture, English teacher lecture. There are all these layers of interpretation of African American spirituals. Like there's the biblical story it's based on, Wade in the Water. It's Joshua and the children of Israel crossing the Jordan River when it was parting. There's going into the Promised Land. That's the physical story. Then the second interpretation might be going from the land of, how do I put this? The land of lack to the land of promise. And you're crossing into that. Another would be passing from life through death into heaven. And another would be crossing the Mississippi River to Cairo, Illinois, and freedom. And so they had all these layers of meaning in these spirituals. Is that cool or what? Sure, why not? Anyway, you didn't know, English teacher here. Okay, so why don't I go ahead and pull out that crazy effect again and show you a couple more flutes, and then we're going to hand out percussion. It's the only problem here. Okay, this is a native flute. Now, they didn't have them in the East as far as I knew. As far as I know, they were mostly a Western instrument, but they play them everywhere because they like to... Okay, come on. Like to play native flute. So I got a native flute. This is made in Arizona by a Native American named Odell Borg. But this is one of the deep ones made out of cedar. They would put these different birds' heads as the fipples, and it's basically like a penny whistle, but you play it a certain way, and it sounds like a native flute. The original story was that a young man would be mentored by an old man in making his own flute. They would climb up in a tree who would pick just the right stick, and he would spend a long time carving it out and getting it to be his own personal voice. They would never play tunes. They would only play improv. That's the standard. That's why you don't see books of Indian tunes, And so he would get it in good condition, and then he would go outside the home of the young lady he wanted to court, and he would sit through the wall, on the outside of the wall of where she was, and start playing this flute. And you could just kind of picture being the young lady in there, all of a sudden hearing an improv on a flute right through the wall of your home, thinking, I wonder who he is. This piece, I actually took the name Matoka, which was the princess name of Pocahontas, who lived right where I live, James City County. And she lived at Werowocomoco, which is across the York River from our peninsula. And she became a Christian, married one of the Englishmen, John Rolfe, and then headed to England as the princess of a people in America meeting with the king and queen of England. It was royalty, and she's on the ship picturing the way her life has gone as she's heading over to meet the king and the queen. And so I call this Pocahontas Remembers, and it's made actually of notes made out of her name in a special chart I devised. And while we have the crazy effect, this is my newest flute. It's an alto flute, and I think I'll just kind of improvise on it on a pentatonic scale just for fun through the effect and get a little more time with my new alto flute. It's not new. It's built the same year as the Hammered Dulcimer, 1999, but it's new to me. It's good for jazz. Look for a whole lot more alto flute on my recordings. Yes. So you can do pentatonic and add a few little ornaments and stuff and turn it into jazz. You know, do the right things. Okay, now these mountain dulcimers. I'm going to tune this back up to. It's back to DAD for all the dads out there. And I want to be accompanied on it. 3 pieces on mountain dulcimer and then penny whistle. So this is, and then we're not going to do any more percussion. I'm going to collect them again. That'll be too many anyway. You know the cajon that people sit on with the snares in it. You know, you can. This is the kind that's small enough that you can play it while you're driving a car. You know, it's got a snare in it. It's a travel cajon. And let's see, here's a sleigh bells, anybody? Ah, I can see it in your eye. Okay, frog, hold the tie frog, handle small part, because the big part makes a good sound. All right. And spoons. Between your hand and your knee, like that. You will do it? All right. Now let's see. A few more. Okay. For the most youthful people here. You can break dance. Finger cymbals, hang them in the air like that. Okay, shaker. Shaker back here. And by the way, that was made in Ohio. Down from here a little ways. By a friend of mine. Triangle. We need stereo. Let's get stereo way back here. Okay? And tambourine. Okay? And does anybody know how to play the Boron Irish drum? Want to do it? Here we are. Okay, here's your instructions. We got to keep the downbeat. Don't get too syncopated because I need to follow your downbeat on what I'm doing. You can do some syncopations, but make sure we keep that boom, 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 ching, 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 whatever, okay? This is a tabor pipe. It's a street dancing pipe, one-handed, from England. And I saw 3 ships. I didn't record for a Christmas album. I recorded for my Jamestown album, like the Pocahontas one, because it was a popular tune at that time. And they set out in 3 ships at Christmas time, 1606. So you could picture people on the shore singing, "I saw 3 ships come sailing in," as 3 ships went sailing out for the New World. Cool? So I keep it kind of slowed down. It's not real fast, so that we can get kind of an adventurous, rollicking dum bum 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 bum. Okay. Get the mic where it goes. Okay. You ready? Put a capo on to make it the key of E minor, and I'm going to want to do a rock and roll piece now that's an original composition of mine that's about one of the most wonderful animals in Virginia. It's on the Virginia Wildlife album and has a boron duet with the Mountain Dulcimer on it. And we can all play, and it's about one of the absolute most wonderful animals in all of the eastern U.S. It's just folk music. Anyway, so it's kind of a rock and roll, boom, 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 steady, insistent beat, and I do some syncopation off of that. So this piece is called Little Brown Bats Eating Mosquitoes. Okay? I called a mammologist who specialized in bats and confirmed with them, yes, thousands a night, yes. I want to move over to the baritone mountain dulcimer. This is a McSpadden from Arkansas. This is actually made in the dismal swamp of Virginia, so it's actually a swamp dulcimer. But this one is one of McSpadden's classic, really nice sounding dulcimers. Hear that? And I'm going to take the capo and put it in minor. And this is a piece I recorded for jangly sounds here. Let's see. I recorded it for my Civil War album, which I'm sorry I'm out of, but I didn't bring enough on the trip, didn't realize. But it's two Irish type tunes that are associated with the Civil War in referring to the same soldier. The first one, so I thought, put them together, make them a medley. It's like I do, you know. And so the first one is the old Irish tune Shularoon with words, Johnny has gone for a soldier. And then during the Civil War, an Irish guy, an American called Patrick Gilmore, wrote a jig-like tune called When Johnny Comes Marching Home. So you got to put those together. Johnny has gone for a soldier, and then he comes marching home. So, well, let's do this is sort of rhythmic, but, you know, softer tunes sort of type of thing. So it goes like this. You ready? Go ahead and play. Okay, one more percussion piece because we can. This is some Irish, Scottish type whistle tunes, and I have three of my favorite whistles. Let me wet my whistle first. No, I didn't say penny whistle. I didn't say tin whistle, because they're aluminum, brass, and nickel, and this is a $100 whistle. Each of these is a $300 whistle. They're handmade by famous whistle makers in the British Isles. This is a Shaw. It has a very rustic-y type sound. You know, and then here's Michael Burke from Ireland, very refined, clean sound. And then here's my favorite, the one that has the best chiff in the sound, is Phil Hardy Chieftain from England. Are they amazingly different, and yet you play them the same. So I'm going to play all three on three different tunes. So the first one is Christmas Day in the Morning, a Scottish fiddle tune, not the same as what we played here. And on this, and then Calliope House on the Michael Burke, which is an Irish jig written for a pub in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And then I'll finish with Red-Haired Boy or Little Beggar Man, which is one of those Mixolydian tunes everybody somehow knows. Ready? So you got to keep the rhythm going when I change whistles, okay? Here. Keep it going. You know, you can clap if you want, too. You can, I'm not against that, you know. And the last one. All right. Now, how do I get these back? Could someone get the boron and carry it around like an offering plate and people could put them in? They're not an offering. I already bought these, you know. But anyway, so let's see. Oh, my. Probably ought to do the final medley. It's getting late. So I'll do the final medley. I have much more material that goes on, and it's just too much, you know. But anyway, so this is my favorite final medley. I opened with Appalachian shape note hymn interpretations, and I want to close with another one of those. And this is, the first one is one called Condescension. And it's one that I found in an old book somewhere back in the 1980s when I was doing a lot of checking out and buying these old shape note books and hunting through them. And I have worked with a lot of these different ones over the years because I was so excited back in the 1980s when I discovered them. And thank you. And I found this one, and it's like it's got a melody that in some ways is like Red-Haired Boy that I just played. It's this mix, it's kind of this drony, askew, gorgeous melody. And it has words by Isaac Watts, who's the guy that wrote, you know, Joy to the World, When I Survey the Wondrous Cross, and a bunch of other, the big ones, you know. And nobody's ever heard these words before, so I thought I'd sing a few of them. And I'm going to start on the bamboo flute and sing a few of them, and then I'm going to go on to a very, very well-known one, There Is a Fountain, with words by William Cooper, spelled Cowper, who was, He was one of the greatest poets of the 18th century in England. Speaking as an English teacher again, using all sorts of amazing metaphors, striking metaphors, and it ended up, his things and Watts and all with their really vivid images were used in Appalachian folk music a lot. Not the ones that were used in the Anglican hymnals and that type of thing, but these were gutsy, you know. And so there is a fountain filled with blood drawn from Emmanuel's veins, and sinners plunged beneath that flood lose all their guilty stains. And I try to capture that in my arrangement, which is sort of an epic arrangement on the Hammered Dulcimer. And then I'm going to close with the most popular, most famous of all the Appalachian folk hymns, which I'm sure you all know, New Britain. You know it by its words, probably, Amazing Grace. And that was written by John Newton, who happened to be Cooper's pastor. And he, everybody knows the story enough, but it was first published with the tune first was published in the 1830s in a shape note book in Virginia, a book called Virginia Harmony in Winchester, Virginia. And before that time, it's all speculation. We don't have anything recorded. It's just things people say. He heard people on his ship singing it or whatever. You know, it's all speculation. So I'm going to do that in an African-American type style, though, on my silver flute at the very end. So 3 pieces here. How condescending and how kind was God's eternal Son. Our misery reached his heavenly mind, and pity brought him down. When justice by our sins provoked drew forth its dreadful sword, he gave his soul up to the stroke without a murmuring word. This was compassion like our God, that though the Savior knew the price of pardon was his blood, his pity ne'er withdrew. Thank you. Have a wonderful evening. Feel free to come up and chat while I'm packing things up, and try my string instruments if you want, too.